Amsterdam, 1637. A single tulip bulb is selling for more than a luxurious townhouse on the canal. Merchants, craftsmen, and even farmers are caught up in a frenzied buying spree. Some have sold everything they own, convinced prices will never stop rising. Everyone's chasing a fortune overnight. But how did a simple flower spark a craze that took over an entire nation? And how did it become more valuable than gold, houses, and everything else of worth? To understand, we have to go back to where it all began. The Netherlands in the 17th century was a land of prosperity. The Dutch Golden Age was in full swing. Trade routes stretched across the globe, cities flourished, and the Dutch East India Company was one of the most powerful entities in the world. The Dutch people, particularly the wealthy elite, developed a taste for luxury goods, fine art, exotic spices, and, most notably, tulips. Originally imported from the Ottoman Empire, tulips quickly became a status symbol. Their vivid colors and unique patterns made them highly desirable among the upper class. The rarest varieties, known as broken tulips, featured striking streaks and flames of contrasting colors, caused by a virus that infected the bulbs. What had once been a simple garden flower was now a symbol of wealth and prestige. By 1634, in part due to rising demand from the French, speculators began to enter the market. As demand for tulips grew, prices surged. The contract price of rare bulbs soared throughout 1636, and by the end of the year, tulips were no longer seen as mere flowers. They were investments. But what happened next defied all logic. The tulip trade took on a life of its own. As more people saw tulip prices rising, they rushed to join the market, hoping to turn a quick profit. Now, it was no longer just the wealthy trading tulips. Servants, shopkeepers, and artisans all joined in, convinced they'd found a path to fortune. Taverns became trading floors, and promises of wealth spread like wildfire. Many sold their homes, land, and businesses to invest in tulips, convinced the market would only go up. A single rare bulb could be worth as much as 10 times a craftsman's annual salary. Some bulbs were reportedly traded for lavish items like horses, ships, and entire estates. The madness had begun, and soon nothing, logic, nor reason could contain it. The frenzy grew so intense that futures contracts, agreements to buy bulbs at a later date for a set price, became commonplace. People were trading tulips they'd never even seen, let alone planted. It seemed like easy money. Prices kept climbing and everyone wanted in. Tulip mania reached its peak during the winter of 1636–37, when some contracts were changing hands 5 times without a single bulb being delivered. It was a house of cards built on nothing but speculation and greed. And as with any house of cards stacked too high, it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. In early February 1637, at a routine tulip auction in Haarlem, something unexpected happened. There were no buyers. The bids stopped coming. It was as if overnight people had lost faith in the tulip trade. Panic spread like wildfire. If tulips weren't selling, then their value was worthless. Those who had agreed to buy bulbs at astronomical prices suddenly refused to pay. Contracts were broken, debts were called in, and financial ruin loomed for those who had invested everything they owned. Within days, the once booming tulip market collapsed. The same bulbs that had been worth small fortunes just weeks before were now practically worthless. Some traders went bankrupt and others lost their entire life savings. One day you were rich, the next you were ruined. The Dutch government attempted to intervene, but it was too late. The bubble had burst. As chaos gripped the market, Dutch authorities faced mounting pressure to act. Merchants and investors demanded the government enforce the broken contracts, while debtors pleaded for relief. But without a central banking system or established financial regulations, there was little precedent for handling such a collapse. Local governments proposed a compromise. Contracts signed before the crash could be annulled if the buyer paid a small penalty, which was just a fraction of the original price. However, many refused to pay anything at all. There was no court in the Netherlands that would enforce payment. The judges unanimously refused to intervene, stating that debts incurred through gambling weren't legally binding. To find a remedy was beyond the power of the government. Those unfortunate enough to be holding large stocks of tulips at the time of the crash had to endure their losses as best they could. Those who made profits were allowed to keep them. The aftermath of the tulip price deflation led to widespread economic chill throughout the Netherlands for many years afterwards. And just like that, the tulip mania was over. But the bigger question is, was any of it real? Much of what we know about tulip mania comes from Charles Mackay's book, Memoirs of Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, published in 1841. Mackay painted a dramatic picture of financial ruin and mass hysteria, but historians have since questioned the accuracy of his claims. There's little evidence that the mania spread beyond the wealthy elite. The notion that common people sold their homes and livelihoods to buy tulips may be exaggerated. In reality, most tulip trades were merely in the form of a contract, and many transactions never actually resulted in money exchanging hands. When the market crashed, most buyers simply walked away from their contracts without significant financial consequences. As for the sellers, they were simply left with tulip bulbs, just as they had been before the speculative craze took hold. People at the end of the chain were stuck with actual flowers to sell at pre-bubble prices. But there was no widespread destitution as Mackay's account suggested. Records from that time indicate that rather than triggering a full economic meltdown, the crisis quietly faded. The markets simply rode the wave and then returned to the levels that existed before the bubble. The Dutch economy remained strong, and tulip mania didn't lead to widespread bank failures or economic collapse. Instead, it became a cautionary tale for generations to come. So the next time a market seems too good to be true, perhaps it's worth remembering the lesson of the tulip traders of 1637. What do you think? Was tulip mania a devastating financial bubble, or has history exaggerated its impact? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from our past. As always, thanks for watching.